Okay, got it. Okay, so thanks guys for coming to this first session that we're having, the Cape Town Together video workshops. And thank you very much to Nadine for donating her time and being present and sharing her skills with us and her experience. So I think to get started, I think we'll do just a quick introduction of all of us. I think Nadine, maybe you should go first and just give a brief introduction of yourself and what you do, and then the rest of us on the call will introduce ourselves, and then we just get started and have a discussion around your work and your approach and what skills that you can pass on to activists who are out there filming and recording during the COVID-19 crisis.
Thanks, Dylan. Yeah, so my name is Nadine. I'm a filmmaker based in Cape Town. I've been doing documentary for just over 10 years, I guess. Action Kommandant, the story of Ashley Kriel, was my first feature-length documentary. I've done a lot of shorts. I've done stuff for television, and now I'm just interested in branching into fiction. So I participated in directing 4 episodes of the Melody series, currently screening on SABC 2. But yeah, I'm still, my big dream right now is to do a documentary set in Tunisia, because I really connected with the people there. So now I'm not sure when that is possible, but that's one of my goals. In terms of documentary goals, that's one of the things I really want to accomplish.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. Because I know you've been there a few times as well. So Leanne, do you want to go next, and then Zach?
Oh, I'm Leanne Brady. I know all of you guys. Feels weird now that we're recording. I guess I often describe myself as a wannabe filmmaker, but then I get told that I've made films and they've even gone to places like festivals, and so I'm a filmmaker. And I guess I'm also a health person. I'm quite involved in the response to the pandemic. And it seems to me that the way we tell stories during this time is of critical importance, that there's an urgent need to tell stories from a particular perspective and in a way that helps shape and shift the narrative about how we collectively respond and take care of one another during this time. So I guess, I'm super keen to be involved in this project because it feels like that there's an immediate and quite urgent need to be telling stories right now about how we look after each other, how we grieve and heal from the loss of losing our loved ones, how we take collective action in our own neighborhoods. And so I'm very keen to see how we tell some sort of stories along the way, but also work towards sort of documenting this moment in maybe as like a collective filmmaking project or something like that. So super excited to be part of that. The films I have made, the one that kind of went a couple of places was Red Zone Paramedics. It's a short film that I made about almost like a story from inside the health system, and I work inside the health system. That's my vibe. But thanks so much for organizing this.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, Nadine, I remember the first time I watched the Ashley Kriel documentary. It was sometime last year in Washington, and I was so moved. And just hearing you now saying that it was your first feature film, I'm like, whoa. I really enjoyed it, and I was like, yo, man, just how you curated everything from start to finish. Yeah, it was just amazing, and I'm so excited to actually have you here. So my name is Zakara Mashele. I work for Ndifunugwazi and Riddle in the City. We support Riddle in the City. So I'm more into videography, a little bit of photography and podcasting. So lately I've been working closely with the Kylie Jacan and also Cape Town Together. So I've been producing my short docu-series around the work that Kylie Jacan is doing. And today we actually managed to secure funding for Kylie Jacan. So when celebrate a bit, just to also say thank you for the second prize that we got. So yeah, that's what I'm in the documentary. I haven't done like a longer piece, but I think that's my dream or my goal for now. But yeah, I'm happy to be here as well.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks so much, and congrats on that win that you guys just had in the Kylie Check-in.
Thanks.
So yeah, myself, I am Dylan Valley, and I'm also a filmmaker. I still, even though I've been making films for quite a long time, I still feel like a wannabe filmmaker, and I don't know if that feeling ever goes away. But I think that it should go away at some point. But yeah, so I'm a filmmaker and I'm an academic, and I teach at UCT. I made a documentary 10 years ago now called Afrikaans, which is about the Afrikaans language and how it actually started as a Kriel language. We trace it back to slaves and indigenous people in the Cape. At the moment, I'm kind of interested in virtual reality and how you can use that in documentaries, but also specifically now, like just kind of community videos. I've done a film about police brutality in Hout Bay called The Uprising of Hangberg. And with my friend Arian Kaganov and Greg Lowe. And I'm really interested in how communities can use the tools of video, digital video now, specifically, and also in this moment now where we're seeing this massive global response to a video of somebody being murdered by the police in America, which is George Floyd's murder. So I think these tools are very important, very powerful. So yeah, but thanks Nadine for joining us for this meeting and for sharing your skills, your approach with us. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So yeah, take it away, and then we can have more of a discussion once you're ready. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much, Dylan. And yeah, I think it is really interesting times, and especially like we've seen what the power of video can do, right? I mean, I saw a meme that said, stop recording and do something. But I was like, but recording is doing something, because if those events were not recorded, we wouldn't have had this reaction to things. I think video work is crucial, right? I was also interested in the way like Spike Lee on his Instagram, he did like this 2-minute clip, and those 2 minutes were just so powerful, where one of the characters in his film Do the Right Thing, the way that character was killed was based on a real life event. So he takes that footage from his fiction film and intercuts it with what is currently happening. And it's really short, but it's so powerful. And so I'm also interested in like, how do you don't need to do the long 90-minute stuff, right? You can really just do 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes like he did, and have such an impact, right? So yeah, I think those things are really interesting to me right now. Yeah, I think I want maybe just start off with like some basics. I think like the types of documentaries that you do get, because I think also it's interesting how a documentary you can also play with style, right? So in some documentaries, they're very poetic. So like the poetic type of documentary where you have your images and a voiceover. Like if you ever watched I'm Not Your Negro, that would be an example of a poetic documentary that was very, very hard hitting. So something like that, it really, I think, tugs at the heartstrings, right? Then there's your more participatory documentary where you as a filmmaker, you become part of the story, right? So you'll be in it, like my friend Yazid, he recently did a documentary on Patricia de Lille, and that was more of a participatory documentary where you put the camera up and you would see him sitting next to her asking questions. And you see very much how the filmmaker drives the story or is part of the action or does activities with the character. I think that's also a very interesting way of doing things. And I think, especially if it's your community, you telling the story, and you experiencing the same things, that kind of approach might be very interesting, right? And then there's, of course, the expository documentary, which is more the traditional, which is more the investigative type of film, where I think for some of my documentaries are a mix between expository, where the filmmaker's you don't see the filmmaker, you're trying to expose something or find the truth behind something. So it's very character-based, interview-based, that kind of thing. And then you have the observational documentary where you're just following somebody, which is more, fly on the wall kind of style of filmmaking. So I would say my work is between expository, observational, and I'm experimenting with poetic as well. But I think what determines your style is the subject matter and the character that you choose to do this work with. I was thinking also that, even if you choose something broad, like, hey, I want to do something about COVID-19, or I want to do something about police brutality, it all comes down to character, right? Because, if I use my own work, Miss Education, which we'll watch a bit later, the project there was to do something about poverty, to speak about poverty in different ways, which is very broad, right? And it just comes down to, okay, so who is going to speak to us about this? And there, for example, my research, and which brings me to the research process. But okay, maybe I'm jumping. but firstly, I want to say that inspirations and for how you do a documentary, it's really, for me, comes from very different places. It can come from the news, it can come from visuals, it can come from YouTube, and mostly for me, it comes from conversations. So interesting conversations I have with someone or people, it ends up just sticking. Like, I can have an interesting conversation with somebody and it sticks, and then a year later I'm like, yeah, that could be an interesting story actually. Or sometimes it just sparks immediately. But I think most of my work has been inspired by conversation. So I think conversation is really an important tool. Actually, it's an interesting tool. We can dissect the power of conversation another time, but really, like, conversation in terms of also active listening, which is something you do a lot in documentary, right? Documentary making. Miss Education came from listening to young kids talk about how they walk to school, what happens in schools. It came from hearing young children speak like that. It came from hearing my own cousins speak about certain things. It came from the news, and so those things stuck. And then when the call for Why Poverty was released, I was like, okay, cool. This is the platform to have that kind of conversation. So, which brings me to, how do you research something? Because for me, research plays a big role in documentary, of course. And research also takes different forms. Again, it can be watching the news, it can be reading newspapers, reading books. For me, sometimes the subject matters that I want to deal with, there's not always enough information. So speaking to people is actually research. It forms a huge part of research. Like when I did the Ashley Kriel documentary, yes, you can read about apartheid and you can read about the UDF and there are books about them, Konto Isizwe. But and I mean, I read a lot of newspaper articles about Bonteville at the time, for example. But for that specifically, there's not a lot of books or articles, and there's not a lot of books about Ashley Kriel. So, but in Ashley is mentioned in a lot of work as a chapter or paragraph, but not a full, it's not a full like primary resource. Right now, okay, there's voices from the underground, but that's very recent, right? So at the time I was researching, my primary resources were people. And so that was an interesting like approach, because you had to speak to many people to like to get the facts, right? Because everyone's speaking from their point of view, from their memory. So memory work also ends up being really important. I mean, depending on the type of documentary that you are doing, but I think having conversations with people is crucial as part of research. Even if it's as simple as you think this person could be an interesting documentary character, okay, like ask them like, describe to me a day in your life, just trying to get a sense of that, and then eventually going to spend time with that person. So also forms part of research. Like for the Tunisian documentary that I want to do, I couldn't just dive in there because I think trust is a factor. Like, they are also the activists in North Africa are still being chased by police, right? And even they, like, the secret police is such a thing. And so trust is something you really have to work on before you can even, I feel, pick up a camera, right? So there's also like getting to know people, and that's why documentary I enjoy it so much, because I feel like it's a true exchange of energies. Even with the Kriel sisters, I don't know if they'll remember, but our very first, let's say, formal interview was not done on camera. It was an audio recording, because I felt like we were still getting to know each other. So I didn't just want to come in there. So it was like an hour or two of just audio recording, and then much later doing the video work. But okay, that's like, those are long processes. Sometimes you just don't have that time either. So with we can look at mass education, for example. So there I had the idea, then it was about finding, like, for example, now let's say you want to do something about what's happening in your community. So that's your basic idea, right? Now you need to be like, okay, cool, who can speak to this? And really then go and find those people. So you're almost like, in fiction film, they call it casting. So you're almost casting, okay, who is best here to speak about this idea. So we can play a mass education now, and then we can chat further about that process.
Okay, I'm gonna play it from my side. Let me just see if this.
Cool.
Oh yeah, there we go. Let's see if this works. You guys tell me if you can see. When you can see my screen, can you see what I'm looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna play Miss Education now on the New York Times YouTube channel.
Mijn naam is Carlene en ik is 12 jaar oud. Wat je me kopje, ik is bang om alleen te lopen. Van dat aan je pad, had de vrouw bekracht. We hebben gezien hoe hij zo kon worden bloed achter gewisseld. Hij zei Regina, maar dat is je choice, maar je ziet het. En meneer alleen lopen. Als Petra met meer kennis te lopen, want als hij maar zo stil, als hij maar alleen loopt, als hij nou weg is, we gaan niet waar zijn. Niet meer gaan weten. Als hij meer in een groep loopt, dan kan je zien wie je gevat. En het allemaal gezien en allemaal weet waar ze is. Als je met mensen loopt, zijn we niet te kwaad te zien, ze kunnen ze willen niemand praten, ze moeten alleen is. Maar een van die tijd, en dan willen mensen niet meer van je houden, nee. En dan willen mensen niet meer van je houden, nee. En dan zeg maar, ze haalt de wat in de akkoord, nee, dat je wel graag dus doen, nee. Dit is het bang om alleen te lopen. Maar, politiek bestaat, zij zijn niet bang te gaan. Die mensen wat skiet als gangsters. En die gangsters namen is uitcellen, Americans, Naughty Boys, en die stoepaar en zulke goeders. Als Pieter altijd dood is, dan gaan we dan niet weer terugkomen. Stand op. Een mens wil dan niet vroeg opstaan, maar joh, hij moet je maar van de school. Mijn naam is Carlene en ik is 12 jaar oud.
Okay. Thanks, Nadine, for sharing that really powerful film. So I guess what I want to ask.
This young man just texted me right now. He took.
Whoops, sorry about that.
Good.
YouTube ads. I love those YouTube ads.
Yeah.
So, I guess what I wanted to ask you is your process in making this film, specifically in terms of the storytelling. And you mentioned a little bit in terms of finding participants for your film, which in fiction we called casting. So how did you choose the character that you went with, and how did you what was your approach in telling her story in a filmmaking sense? Because you used some really interesting cinematic devices there with the camera and with sound and stuff like that. So maybe you could talk just a little bit about setting up as a character and telling a story, and then the cinematic devices you use to tell that story.
Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, so let me explain the process. So the Why Poverty Call came out, and I wanted to, education is one of the greatest tools out of poverty, but at the same time, there's a different kind of education you need in order to survive, not just what you learn at school, right? So I wrote just a paragraph about that to the producers, and then it got, but so I wrote that paragraph, but with I didn't have a character or I didn't have participants, let's say, confirmed at that time. So it was just this idea. And then when the idea got selected, I needed to think about, well, okay, who do I see as participating in this? And for me, I really wanted to work with a young person that I didn't have to interview. I didn't want to interview someone so heavily. I wanted to find someone that could, if I asked them just one question, that could speak about things themselves, right? So I met like a lot of kids from different areas, and then eventually came to Menenberg. I think it's Menenberg Primary, because also I done other work in the community, so I could contact the school principal, and he just brought 11 kids to the office, but also because I could give him a bit of, actually that's the brief that I gave him. I said I want to speak to somebody who I can ask one question to, and they will speak. I don't want to do this 20 questions of somebody so young. And then he brought 11 kids he thought could do that. And I spent an hour or so with all of those kids, and then brought it down to 5. And then went to go film and then just took my camera and went to go film with them what their actual walk to school is like. So they were 5. Then I had that research material, what I call the research material then, and went to show it to producers, and we brought it down to 2. And then it was decided, well, let's actually film with both of them. One was a young boy and the young girl that you see in the clip. Initially, I thought that the film would be a walk and talk. But during the research clip, I could see that wasn't going to work, because there's so much attention on that child. Apart from your technical issues that you have with sound and doing a walk and talk, but it's also, I felt like that doing the interview, just recording the interview by itself as an audio, was also just safer for the child as well, right? And also just working with children, just to put it there, we obviously got parents' permissions. We got their parents' permissions. Also, a tip that I learned was, if the parents are divorced, you must get both parents' permissions, not just one, to work with the child. And the interview that we did with the Kalina and the other young boy, those were done at the school. So we really tried to create a safe as safe of an environment as possible. And so the approach we took was then, okay, realizing that the walk and talk won't work. Another supervising producer had also said, before I did the research thing that he felt talk and talk just wouldn't work, and he turned out to be right. And then we decided to do the interview separate, the visuals and the interviews separately, right? So yeah, and then what we did was we did that interview. We filmed with Kalina in the morning, and then when she went to school, we continued to film other material, but make it clear that it was from her point of view. And we really just filmed around the block where she lived, and in all those, the things that we saw were happening, quite early morning. So what you could see on your way to school. And yeah, that was interesting because then and obviously I also filmed with the other character like that. And only in the edit did we decide on which would be our final character. So that was interesting as well. And even in the edit, here I wish, sadly the editor passed away, Mino Burama, but it was so great working with him and learning what an edit can say, because we had 3 versions. I mean, it's such a short film, but I mean, the process that it took from 11 characters to 5 to 2, then getting into the edit and deciding which one, and then having 3 versions of a cut. And really being able to discuss, okay, what each cut makes us feel, and what it says, right? So we ended up working with Kalina, because the young boy that we also interviewed, we felt that the visuals that we got didn't really match what he was saying. Even though he was also really powerful, just felt like the visuals that we had more matched what Kalina was saying. And yeah, and I get stuck. Yeah, and then we went into edit, and yeah, and then the story became more of like a dreamlike sequence, which I think works um, because of the point of view shots that we had to do without Kalina present. So it's more of like, this could happen. This is what I'm thinking about when I walk to school. Yeah, so the process of that was interesting. It was the first time I had to cast for an idea that I had.
Then,
And yeah.
could you talk a little bit more about the point of view shots that you're talking about, in terms of what does that mean for someone who's not familiar with that, and
Okay.
how did you guys use that to show her kind of point of view walking to school?
So yeah, so I obviously had to make sure that Kalina got to school and didn't miss like a full day. So when she went to school, what we did, I mean, we had been filming with her first, so the camera person had an idea of her height. And then when she left, we continued to film things. It can be as simple as just filming from her height, and that functions as her point of view and how she would walk. And you could see how, because she's a young child, how the camera is just tilted, because the young child would look up to adults like that. So it's a feeling that we tried to create, was just the camera work, something as simple as keeping it to a height, creating that world from the point of view of a child. And that's why it was that's why it was better to do that interview first, to get a real sense of things, and to spend the time with her. I mean, like I said, we did 2 research interviews that were recorded, and then maybe another one, an introductory interview that perhaps wasn't recorded, and then went on to do the actual recording of the video, of the audio. Yeah. So that was a very interesting process. And I think what Kalina really, I just asked her 1 or 2 questions, and that's what came from it, and that's what I wanted. I didn't want it to people to think I was like prodding for certain question answers. I didn't want that. So those are all of that is her point of view, not scripted. Yeah.
What I like about that approach is that basically you recognize that she is a storyteller herself. So what I'm hearing what you're saying, which I really love about your approach in this film, is that you were looking for somebody who was a storyteller, who, even though they were a child, were able to were able to relay their experience in a way that others could feel it, and it was poetic.
Yeah.
She says that thing, a bullet doesn't have an address. I mean, that's such an amazing line, right? Like, it's like you can't even, like, you can't script that in a feature film. It just wouldn't be the same, because when she says that, it's like, it's so real and so poetic. And I think that's like a great lesson in that, like, people are already storytellers without any of the storytelling tools. They're already doing it. And we have like a history of storytelling. We have on the continent and in Cape Town specifically, like oral histories and things like that. So I really love the fact that you approached it in that way. I just cognizant of the fact we have like 10 minutes till the hour. So I don't know if we want to open it up for questions from and inputs from Zach and Leanne.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so do you guys...
Sorry, Dol. Yeah, I'll make a super quick comment. I mean, I love Miseducation. Nadine, I've seen that film so many times, and it's so great. And again, watching it today, it's like, and I mean, I was reflecting on how you said right at the beginning you want to start doing more poetic documentary, and I was like, but surely isn't that what that is? So when you said it's poetic, and it is, because Kalina's a storyteller already herself, like, and I mean we've kind of started a lot of, and actually interestingly enough, so in a bunch of different sort of various processes, I won't go into details, we've used Miseducation as a way to sort of like catalyze conversations. And in Ocean View in particular, we used it last year, and the kind of the Community Action Network stuff is now sort of, anyway, it's about connection of stories all coming round. And it's such a beautiful piece, like, and it's super interesting to hear like the thoughtful way that you and all of the colleagues you worked with on it went about making a short but really powerful piece. So thanks.
I felt like, because Kalina is a storyteller in her own right, like you say, and there was this platform for me the film was also not just about speaking about poverty and education in a way, but it also reflected remnants of apartheid, the Group Areas Act, what is it, and so for me it's like 4 minutes, but it becomes very layered, and to hear an 11-year-old speak about rape in that way is also like, sure. And so what happens when we do give our characters or documentary participants just that space, right, to be
Zach, you also had a comment as well, right? I think I heard you start to speak there, or a question.
Yes, more of how do you go around, or what were some of the stereotypes or critiques that you had working with Kathleen? I'm just quite interested to find that out, because working with children sometimes is a bit hard. And also, like, people, they just want to know about consent, and also earlier you mentioned if the parents are divorced, then you should get consent from both of them. But it could also be tricky where the parents are not in speaking terms. So how do you handle that? Is it like kind of a red flag for you to move on to another character, but you know that this character is the one that you want to, like, how do you go about that? Some of the critiques that you had with this project that you worked on.
Thanks. Yeah, I did see someone like mention on social media once that it was irresponsible to work with a child like that. But I felt like, wow, aren't children allowed voices? Like, must children then remain silent? And I do agree, like, you shouldn't just go and interview a child just off the street or in public or whatever. Like, permissions must be gotten. And I think that because we work through the school, that was a good way of then a good entry point of speaking to parents, and that the school, so through the school and through the school's principal support, and because parents were divorced, I mean, they were the parents I don't want to speak too much about someone's personal circumstances, but I think if people are divorced and not living together, then you as a filmmaker, it's your duty to make that effort and go to that person's house, go to the mother's house, go to the father's house, because you don't want to sit with the problem of you only got one parent's permission, then the thing goes public and somebody is left very upset. So, I think it's just working hard to make that effort. And unfortunately, if somebody in that scenario says no, then unfortunately you have to let it go, right? Because it's not worth the trouble afterwards. I mean, I have had people in documentaries that I thought would be great characters, and then they said, you know what, I really don't feel like participating anymore for such and such a reason, and you try and force them into a situation because you think, but they would be so great, or they have this information and people really need to, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't read well on camera. Because that, like I said, documentary is about a certain energy exchange, and if that isn't good, if it's not a good exchange, it really will translate on camera. But of course, it's also the type of thing you're trying to do. So it's character driven. Of course, you want to have everyone comfortable and get the permissions. And if you're doing an expose on like an asshole, then you go for it. But then you also need to what do they call it in journalism? It's like public interest or something like that. Like this must be in the greater good of the public interest. Yeah. But working with children, definitely get all the permissions. Like I said, for us it was good because we had the school as a starting point. So I think parents really trust something if it comes from us, like an authority figure in the community, like the school principal, and teachers, of course, as well. So that was I think it was good to go in like that.
Can you tell us a bit about also, like, in terms of storytelling, in the sense of letting the viewers know the world that your characters are inhabiting, right? So you have a character, and your film is only 4 minutes long. Well, this particular film is 4 minutes long, but in that 4 minutes, you actually manage to paint like a whole picture of what her life is like, the challenges that she's facing, and that kind of thing. But also importantly, her as a person, as a character herself. And what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's maybe telling a story about somebody in their community, and actually is telling a story about a particular issue, but is using the vehicle of a character, of a person to tell that story, so that people can relate to, for example, food insecurity or job losses or evictions in a neighborhood. But you're not talking about evictions, but you actually, per se, you're actually talking about the people whose lives are affected through these evictions, who are people with hopes, desires, dreams, everyday stuff going on, and then have like these kinds of major disruptions in their lives. So yeah, but I'm going on a bit here, but how would you, my question is, how do you tell that kind of issue through somebody's story, and how did you do that? How would you say you did it here in Miseducation?
I think like if you take something normal, supposedly normal, like a walk to school, everybody's gone to school. Most kids walk to school, and we get to school in different ways. And I think that, so the construct of I must get ready to go to school, we're all familiar with. And so to take something that's familiar, but then to flip it, I think that's important. So maybe to use the word universal. So there's something universal about this person. Their struggles are universal, something that they're going through. And so it's to maybe introduce people to the world just in terms of that, even if it's really quickly, and then get into the other stuff, because there must be something about this person that we identify with. I mean, some people, they always give that example of like sports movies. You might not be a sports fan, but you know what it's like to struggle to get to your goal. You know what it's like to get through those like impossible circumstances. So you might not be into basketball per se, you might never have played it, but you enjoy a basketball movie, and why, right? Because there are those universal connects. I hope I've answered your question there, but it look like and that's what's interesting. Like if I use the Tunisian example, because there I'm coming like as a complete from the other side of the continent. So what in this person do I connect with? And I think if I think of some of the interviews that I did, it was like, okay, cool, we were all speaking about what it means to decolonize something. We were speaking about land issues. We would speak, and even like gender issues. So in terms of that, and to see how somebody else grapples with that and speaks to that, that created for me a certain, I guess, an entry point. And also that I think right now we understand, I was gonna say protest. Maybe there's different understandings of protest, but like to see somebody protest and then unpacking that, which is also, I feel, universal. So yeah, for me it's like, okay, cool. Introducing a world of somebody is really trying to find what is that thing that I can connect with here. I think that's also the interesting thing about Miseducation was just, it's meant to be a simple walk to school. Like that's all it's meant to be, but it's not. And so how can you play with that? How can you play with those things? I mean, even if you think of Action Kommandant, the research process, for example, was ongoing, right? The research then never ended. But and it's maybe it comes, yes, it's the story of Ashley Kriel, but at the end of it, it's also the story of a community. So maybe people have a broad understanding of what a liberation hero is or a struggle hero is, but they've never heard of Bontiville before. So what, yeah, so it's using the ordinary then to try and speak about bigger issues.
Yeah, like with the Ashley
Yeah.
Kriel film, it was you through his one character, you told the story of so many people whose stories were never told. So he became also a symbol for something way bigger than his own individual story, which in itself was big. But I remember at the screening of Action Kommandant in Joburg, when we went to go see it there then, Karima Brown was there, and she told her son that was the first time, or her son told her this was the first time he actually understood what her youth was like, what her youth was actually about. And yeah, so it was really, really, really powerful in that way. So we already at 12:03. Are there any other inputs? Should we keep going? I'm open to keep going. Say in closing.
Yeah, this has been so interesting. It's like I also don't want to go. Yeah, I don't know. I have another meeting, but I'm happy if like you want to continue. Like this is amazing.
But I think like Dylan, the Africa, the Afrikaans film also had like such a profound influence on me. Like I think work like that can be screened 20 years from now and still affect people just because I mean, they were speaking about a language, but we're doing it through characters and through like relatively well-known figures in Cape Town, right? So it was just like, I mean, at the end of the day, I think your work, you really hope that it will inspire some kind of action, right? Yeah, and I think that's the main thing. There are so many different approaches, there are so many styles and ways of doing things, but at the end we don't want to have just passive viewers. Um, you know, that's the thing. Yeah. So
I think that's a really good note to end on. That's a really powerful message there. Unless anyone else has anything else they want to add, I think this was really, really, really powerful. So thank you so much for this. And I feel like I've learned a lot, even though I've been watching all your films and following you since we were both students. So yeah, thank you.
likewise.
Zach?
Yeah.
Thanks, Dylan, man.
No, I just wanna send out my gratitude and thank you for your time. Like Dylan said, thank you for donating your time. It was really amazing. Learned a lot, and yeah, I had like back-to-back questions, but you answered them, and also thank you for asking those questions. Yeah, I think everything was well covered, and I think it's a bit exciting now because especially for me working with children, it'll give me a lot of anxiety. Thinking about backlash and what if like this kid will be uncomfortable maybe after the period of time. So, but just listening to you speak about how you went about it and to the final product, I think that has given me like hope and besides just working with children, but also working on other projects going forward. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing those with us.
Yeah, man, all the best. And I mean, I really salute those that are already recording on the ground and have been, documenting processes. It's so important. I mean, you can basically save someone's life or, by recording, just by being there and taking out your cell phone. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, thanks Nadine for making time, and Dil for pulling it together, and Zach for joining, and also me. Like, thanks to all of us. I think I guess like yeah, I really liked what you said about how we want to be. The two things that, I mean, obviously a lot of what you said really deeply resonated. I think the two things that really hit home were like how we want to, I mean, Dil, you and I spoke about this the other day as well, how we want to be finding a way to tell human stories in this moment that are long lasting, you know, that kind of are helping us shift narratives at a time when a lot of things are very inhuman, you know, at least from the health system's perspective. A lot of the ways in which we are responding to COVID is dehumanizing in and of itself. I mean, like the quarantine and isolation process where people are extracted from their homes to contain a disease, opposed to caring for a person who needs support, you know, like, so there's so many ways in which what you said of kind of like, in a way, I mean, it's a little bit like how Jabul Ndebele also talks about like rediscovering the ordinary, you know, which for me is like decolonizing storytelling in action, actually, you know, like how do we tell stories from everyday lives, and how do we find people who want to tell their stories, who are, as you said, Dol, already storytellers like Kelina, in ways that also, I guess, connect the dots. So, and that's exactly what Miseducation did, you know, like it, in what should be just a walk to school, we learned so much about the neighborhood Kelina lives in, the country that she's from, that she lives in, and the intergenerational ways in which injustice have been passed on, you know? So it's like, it's sort of like, it's, and I think it would be amazing, Zach, as you and me are around, like filming while we're doing all sorts of shit these days, like it would be so useful to think about what like, yeah, how we connect the dots a little bit, you know? So it's a little bit about how we connect, like how we demonstrate through everyday important stories about people's lives that, you know, COVID-19 is just, it's laying bare and shining a light on the injustice which were already unacceptable, you know, like it's like people keep talking about when will things go back to normal, and going back to normal is one of the worst things that could ever happen, you know, like, so in some ways there's the role of storytelling, I think, I mean, and we all think that obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be here always, but especially now, you know, like, and so that becomes the challenge, because you sort of, and as you said, Nadine, there's lots of different ways to do that, you know, like the live streaming during the Empolweni protest, Zach, where it was amazing, and they did save lives, you know, and they created like a citywide consciousness, and then led to a national moratorium on evictions during lockdown. You know, like these aren't small things. And it's not, I mean, so the first thing you said, Nadine, was like that meme about stop recording and do something. And you're like, yo, recording is doing something, you know, like, I think like, yeah, that idea of telling stories in ways that resonate deeply with the shared experiences we have, but connect the dots to the histories we share, the histories of injustice, the structural ways in which our world is still shaped, and then that inspire people to take action, whatever that means, you know, and like a conversation with your kid at dinner is still action, you know, like, so it's, yeah, it's amazing. Thanks for making the time. Really, really great.
Thank you guys. And yeah, man, just thanks for all the work you guys are doing. I'm trying to follow on that space, and it's just, yeah, man, there is so much work to do.
Yeah, definitely. And we all can do something in our own ways in our communities and use our own skills, you know, to do that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna end the call now. Again, thanks to everybody. If you're watching this video that we recorded, we're doing this weekly. So if you're watching this, we're gonna be doing them once a week on Zoom, and we'll be sending out invites on Cape Town Together CAN groups and so forth. So if you're watching this, you probably already know what to do in terms of which WhatsApp groups to join and that kind of thing. But yeah, thanks guys again, and have a wonderful day, and keep doing the things you're doing to make the things happen. Okay. Peace.
And thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.